Chapter 5. Svalbard Islands, Norway. Present. The next time my sat phone vibrates, the winds have picked up even more. It's snowing too. I've somehow managed to nestle myself in a small nook in the wall of my crevasse, but large flurries are starting to happily stick to the mini rover I brought with me. Which is, I must admit, ironic in a cosmic kind of way. The very reason I ventured out here was to test how the mini rover I designed would work in highly stressful, low sunlight, low command input situations. Of course, it was not supposed to storm. I was going to drop off the gear and then immediately return to the headquarters, which, well, it didn't quite work out like that, obviously. But the gear is being covered by a layer of snow. And the sun is going to set soon. The mini rover is in a highly stressful, low sunlight, low command input situation, and from a scientific standpoint this mission wasn't a total clusterfuck. At some point in the next few days, someone at a mace, likely Dr. Merrill, that asshole, will try to activate it, and then we'll know whether my work was actually solid. Well, they will know. By then I'll probably just be a popsicle with a very pissed off expression, like Jack Torrance at the end of The Shining. Are you still doing okay? Ian's voice jostles me from my pre-apocalyptic whining. My heart flutters like a hummingbird, a sickly, freezing one who forgot to migrate south with her buddies. I don't bother answering, instead instantly ask, why are you here? I know I sound like an ungrateful bitch, and while I've never concerned myself with coming across as the latter, I do not mean to be the former. The problem is his presence makes no damn sense. I've had 20 minutes to think about it, and it just doesn't. And if this is the place and time where I finally croak, well, I don't want to die confused. Just out on a promenade. He sounds a little out of breath, which means that the climb must have been a tough one. Ian is lots of things, but out of shape is not one of them. Taking in the scenery. What about you? What brings you here? I'm serious. Why are you in Norway? You know, the sound briefly cuts, then bounces back with a generous helping of white noise. Not everyone vacations in South Padre. Some of us enjoy cooler destinations. The huffing and puffing through the tenuous satellite line is almost intimate. We're exposed to the same elements on the same heavily glaciated terrain, while the rest of the world has taken shelter. We're out here alone. And it doesn't make any sense. When did you fly into Svalbard? It couldn't have been any time in the last 3 days, because there were no incoming fights. Svalbard is well connected to Oslo and Tromsø in the peak season, but that won't start until mid-March. So, Ian must have been here for a handful of days. But why? He is chief of engineering on several rover projects, and the Serendipity team is approaching crunch time. It makes no sense for one of their key personnel to be in another country right now. Plus, the engineering component of this amaze is minimal. Only Dr. Merrill and me, really. All other members are geologists and astrobiologists, and why the hell is Ian here? Why the hell would NASA send a senior engineer on a rescue mission that wasn't even supposed to happen? Are you still doing okay? He asks again. When I don't reply, he continues, I'm close. A few minutes away. I brush snowflakes from my eyelashes. When did Amaze change its mind on sending relief efforts? A brief hesitation. Actually, it might be more than a few minutes. The storm's intensifying, and I can't see very well. Ian, why did they send you? A deep breath. Or a sigh. Or a puff, louder than the others. You ask a lot of questions, he says. Not for the first time. Yeah. But they're pretty good questions, so I'm going to keep on asking more. For instance, how the? As long as I can ask some, too. I nearly groan. What do you want to know? Best concert. Favorite concert. An overview of the amenities of the crevasse. It offers very little in terms of nightlife. I need to know, Hannah, if you are doing okay. I close my eyes. The bite of the cold is like a million needles wedged under my skin. Yes. I'm fine. Suddenly, the call drops. The static, the noise, they all disappear, and I can't hear Ian anymore. I glance at my sat phone and find it still on. Shit. The problem is on his end. The snow's getting thicker, it'll be pitch black in minutes, and on top of that I'm almost sure that Ian has been attacked by a polar bear. If something happens to him, I'll never be able to forgive mice. I hear steps cracking the snow and look up to the rim of the crevasse. The light is dimming by the second, but I make out the tall, broad outline of a man in a ski mask. He is looking down at me. Oh God. Is he really? See. Ian's deep voice says, just a little out of breath. He lowers his neck warmer before adding, that wasn't so hard, was it? Chapter 6. Johnson Space Center, Houston, Texas. 6 months ago. I am surprised by how much the email hurts, because it's a lot. Not that I expected to be happy about it. It's a well-established fact that hearing that your project has been denied funding is as pleasant as plunging a toilet. But rejections are the bread and butter of all academic journeys, and since starting my PhD, I've had approximately 1,200 fantabillions of them. In the past 5 years I've been denied publications, conference presentations, fellowships, scholarships, memberships. I even failed at getting into Brugger's unlimited drinks program, a devastating setback, considering my love for iced teas. The good thing is the more rejections you get, the easier they are to swallow. What had me punching pillows and plotting murder in the first year of my PhD barely fazed me in the last. Progress in aerospace sciences saying that my dissertation wasn't worthy of gracing their pages. Fine. National Science Foundation declining to sponsor my postdoctoral studies. Okay. Mara insisting that the Rice Krispies treats I made for her birthday tasted like toilet paper. I'll live. This specific rejection, though, cuts deep. Because I really need the grant money for what I'm planning to do. Most of NASA funding is tied to specific projects, but every year there is a discretionary pot that's up for grabs, usually for junior scientists who come up with research ideas that seem worth exploring. And mine, I think, is pretty worthy. I've been at NASA for over 6 months. I spent nearly all of them in Norway at the best Mars analog on Earth, knee-deep in intense fieldwork, equipment testing, sampling exercises. For the past couple of weeks ever since returning to Houston, I've taken my place with the A&P team, and it's been really cool. Ian was right, best team ever. But every break, every free second, every weekend, every scrap of time I could find, I focused on finalizing the proposal for my project, believing that it was a fucking great idea. And now that proposal has been rejected. Which feels like being stabbed with a Santoku knife. Did something happen? Carl, my office mate, asks from across the desk. You look like you're about to cry. Or maybe throw something out of the window, I can't tell. I don't bother to glance at him. Haven't made up my mind, but I'll keep you updated. I stare at the monitor of my computer, skimming the feedback letters from the internal reviewers. As we all know, in early 2010, the rover Spirit became stuck in a sand trap, was unable to reorient its solar panels toward the sun, and froze to death as a consequence of its lack of power. Something very similar happened 8 years later to Opportunity, which went into hibernation when a maelstrom blocked sunlight and prevented it from recharging its batteries. Obviously, the risk of losing control of rovers because of extreme weather events is high. To address this, Dr. Arroyo has designed a promising internal system that is less likely to fail in the case of unpredictable meteorological situations. She proposes to build a model and test its efficacy on the next expedition at the Arctic Mars Analog in Svalbard, AMACE. Dr. Arroyo's project is a brilliant addition to NASA's current roster, and it should be approved for further study. Dr. Arroyo's vitae is impressive, and she has accumulated enough experience to carry out the proposed work. If successful, this proposal will do something critical for NASA's space exploration program: decrease the experience of low-power faults, mission clock faults, and up-loss timer faults in future Mars exploration missions. Here is the issue: the reviews are positive. Overwhelmingly positive. Even from a crowd of scientists that, I am well aware, feeds on being mean and scathing. The science doesn't seem to be a problem, the relevance to NASA's mission is there, my CV is good enough, and it doesn't add up. Which is why I'm not going to sit here and take this bullshit. I slam my laptop closed, aggressively stand from my desk, and march right out of my office. Hannah. Where are you? I ignore Carl and make my way through the hallways till I find the office I'm looking for. Come in, a voice says after my knock. I met Dr. Merrill because he was my direct superior during AMACE, and he is an odd duck, honestly. Very stiff. Very hardcore. NASA is full of ambitious people, but he seems to be almost obsessed with results, publications, the kind of sexy science that makes big splashy news. Initially I wasn't a fan, but I must admit that, as a supervisor, he's been nothing but supportive. He's the one who selected me for the expedition to begin with, and he encouraged me to apply for funding once I went to him with my project idea. Hannah. How nice to see you. Do you have a minute to talk? He's probably in his 40s, but there is something old school about him. Maybe the sweater vests, or the fact that he's literally the only person I've met at NASA who doesn't go by his first name. He takes off his metal-rimmed glasses, sets them on his desk, then he steeples his fingers to give me a long look. It's about your proposal, isn't it? He doesn't offer me a seat, and I don't take one. But I do close the door behind me. I lean my shoulder against the door frame and cross my arms on my chest, hoping I won't sound the way I feel, i.e. homicidal. I just got the rejection email, and I was wondering if you have any insight. The reviews didn't highlight areas needing improvement, so I wouldn't worry about it, he says dismissively. I frown. What do you mean? It's inconsequential. Is it? Yes. Of course it would have been convenient if you had those funds at your disposal, but I've already discussed it with two of my colleagues who agree that your work is meritorious. They are in control of other funds that Floyd won't be able to veto, so. Floyd. I raise my finger. I must have misheard. Hold up, did you say Floyd? Ian Floyd. I try to recall if I've heard of other Floyds working here. It's a common last name, but. Merrill's face doesn't hide much. It's obvious that he was referring to Ian, and it's obvious that he wasn't supposed to bring him up, fucked up by doing it anyway, and now has no choice but to explain to me what he hinted at. I have exactly zero intention of letting him off the hook. This is of course, confidential, he says after a brief hesitation. Okay, I agree hurriedly. The review process should remain anonymous. Floyd cannot know. He won't, I lie. I have no plan at the moment, but part of me already knows that I'm lying. I'm not exactly the non-confrontational type. Very well. Merrill nods. Floyd was part of the committee that screened your application, and he was the one who decided to veto your project. He. What? He what? No way. This doesn't sound right. Ian isn't even here in Houston. I know this because a couple of days after coming back from Norway, I went looking for him. Looked him up on the NASA directory, got a cup of coffee and one of tea from the cafeteria, then went to his office with only vague ideas of what I'd say, feeling almost nervous, and I found it locked. He's at Japel, someone with a South African accent told me when they noticed me idling in the hallway. Oh. Okay. I turned around. Took 2 steps away. Then turned back to ask when will he be back. Hard to tell. He's been there for a month or so to work on the sampling tool for serendipity. I see. I thanked the woman, and this time I left for real. It's been a little over a week since then, and I've been to his office. In a number of instances. I'm not even sure why. And it doesn't really matter, because the door was closed every single time. Which is how I know that Ian is at Japel. He's not here. You are mistaken, Merrill says. He's back. I stiffen. As of when? That, I could not tell you, but he was present when the committee met to discuss your proposal. And like I said, he was the one who vetoed it. This is impossible. Nonsensical. Are you sure it was him? Merrill gives me an annoyed look and I swallow, feeling oddly exposed standing the way I am in this office while being told that Ian, really, is the reason I didn't get my funding. It seems like a lie. But would Merrill lie? He's way too straight-laced for that. I doubt he has the imagination. Can he do that? Veto a project that's otherwise well received? Considering his position and seniority, yes. Why though? He sighs. It could be anything. Perhaps he is jealous of a brilliant proposal, or he'd rather the funding go to someone else. Some of his close collaborators have applied, I hear. A pause. Something he said made me suspect that. What? That he didn't believe you capable of doing the work. I stiffen. Excuse me. He didn't seem to find faults in the proposal. But he did talk about your role in it in less than flattering tones. Of course, I tried to push back. I close my eyes, suddenly nauseous. I cannot believe Ian would do this. I cannot believe he'd be such a backstabbing, miserable dick. Maybe we're not close friends, but after our last meeting, I don't know. I have no idea. I think maybe I had expectations of something, but this puts a swift end to them. I'm going to appeal. There is no reason to do that, Hannah. There are plenty of reasons. If Ian thinks that I'm not good enough despite my CV, Do you know him? Merrill interrupts me. What? I was wondering if you two know each other. No. No, I once humped his leg. It was fantastic. Barely. Just in passing. I see. I was just curious. It would explain why he was so determined about denying your project. I'd never seen him quite so adamant that a proposal not get accepted. He waves his hand, like this is not important. But you shouldn't concern yourself with this, because I have already secured alternative funding for your project. Oh. Now this I did not expect. Alternative funding. I reached out to a few team leaders who owed me favors. I asked them if they had any budget surplus they might want to dedicate to your project, and I was able to put together enough to send you back to Norway. I half gasp, half laugh. Really? Indeed. On the next Amaze. The one that leaves in February of next year, yes. What about the help I asked for? I will need one other person to help me build the mini rover, and to be in the field. And I'll have to travel quite a way from home base, which might be dangerous on my own. I don't think we'll be able to finance another expedition member. I press my lips together and think about it. I can probably do most of the prep work on my own. If I don't sleep for the next few months, which I've done it before, I'll be fine. The problem would be when I get to Small Bar. It's too risky to. I'll be there, out in the field with you, of course, Dr. Merrill says. I'm a little surprised. In the months we were in Norway, I saw him do very little sample collecting and snow plotting. I've always thought of him as more of a coordinator. But if he offered, he must mean it, and I smile. Perfect then. Thank you. I slip out of the room, and for about 2 weeks I'm high enough on the knowledge that my project will be happening that I manage to do just that, not let anyone know. I don't even tell Mara and Sadie when we FaceTime because to explain the degree of Ian's betrayal, I'd have to admit to the lie I told them years ago. Because I feel like a total idiot for trusting someone who deserves nothing from me. Because being honest with them would first require me to be honest with myself, and I'm too angry, tired, disappointed for that. In my rants, Ian becomes a faceless, anonymous figure, and there is something freeing in that. In not letting myself remember that I used to think of him fondly, and by name. Then, exactly 17 days later, I meet Ian Floyd in the stairwell. And that's when everything goes to shit. I spot him before he sees me because of the red, and the general largeness, and the fact that he's climbing up while I'm going down. There are about 5 elevators here, and I'm not sure why anyone would willingly choose to subject their bodies to the stress of upward stairs, but I'm too shocked that Ian is the one doing it. It's the kind of glory-less overachieving I've come to expect from him. My first instinct is to push him and watch him fall to his death. Except I'm almost sure it's a felony. Plus Ian is considerably stronger than me, which means it might not be feasible. Abort mission, I tell myself. Just squeeze by. Ignore him. Not worth your time. The problems start when he looks up and notices me. He stops exactly 2 steps below, which should put him at a disadvantage but depressingly, unfairly, tragically doesn't. We are at eye level when his eyes widen and his lips curve in a pleased smile. He says, "Hannah," a touch of something in his voice that I recognize but instantly reject, and I have no choice but to acknowledge him. The staircase is deserted, and sound carries far. His "I came looking for you" is deep and low and vibrates right through me. Last week. Some guy in your office said you don't work there much, but fuck off. The words crash out of me. My temper has always been reckless, 100 miles per hour and, well, still is, I guess. Ian's reaction is too baffled to be confused. He stares at me like he's not sure what he just heard, and it's the perfect chance for me to walk away before I say something I regret. But seeing his face makes me remember Merrell's words, and that is really not good. He didn't believe you capable of doing the work. The worst part, the one that actually hurts, is how thoroughly I misjudged Ian. I actually thought he was a good guy. I liked him a lot when I never let myself like anyone, and how dare he? How dare he stab me in the back and then address me as though he's my friend? What exactly is it that you have a problem with, Ian? I square my shoulders to make myself bigger. I want him to look at me and think of a cruiser tank. I want him to be scared I'm going to pillage him. Is it that you hate good science? Or is it purely personal? He frowns. He has the audacity to frown. I have no idea what you're talking about. You can cut it. I know about the proposal. For a second he is absolutely still. Then his gaze hardens, and he asks, "Who told you?" At least he's not pretending not to know what I'm referring to. Really? I snort. Who told me? That's what seems relevant. His expression is stony. Proceedings regarding the disbursement of internal funding are not public. An anonymous internal peer review is necessary to guarantee your ability to allocate funding to your close collaborators and fuck up the careers of the ones you have no use for. Right. He jerks back. Not the reaction I expected, but it fills me with joy nonetheless. Unless the reason was personal. And you vetoed my proposal because I didn't sleep with you, 5 years ago? He doesn't deny it, doesn't defend himself, doesn't scream that I'm insane. His eyes narrow to blue slits and he asks, "It was Merrill, wasn't it? Why do you care? You did veto my project, so did he also tell you why I vetoed it?" I never said that it was Merrill who. Because he was there when I explained my objections, at length and in detail. Did he admit that? I press my lips together. Which he seems to interpret as an opening. Hannah. He leans closer. We're nose to nose, I smell his skin and his aftershave, and I hate every second of this. Your project is too dangerous. It specifically asks that you travel to a remote location to drop off equipment at a time of the year in which the weather is volatile and often totally unpredictable. I've been in Longyearbyen in February and avalanches develop out of the blue. It's only gotten worse in the last few How many times? He blinks at me. What? How many times have you been to Longtime? I've been on 2 expeditions. Then you'll understand why I take the opinion of someone who has been on a dozen missions over yours. Plus, we both know what the real reason of the veto was. Ian opens, then closes his mouth. His jaw hardens and I'm finally sure of it, he's mad. Pissed. I see it in the way he clenches his fist. The flare of his nostrils. His big body is just inches from mine, glowing with anger. Hannah, Merrill is not always trustworthy. There have been incidents under his watch that. What incidents? A pause. It's not my information to disclose. But you shouldn't trust him with your. Right. I scoff. Of course I should take the word of the guy who went behind my back over the word of the guy who went to bat for me and made sure my project was funded anyway. Very hard choice to make. His hand lifts to close around my upper arm, at once gentle and urgent. I refuse to care enough to pull away from his touch. What did you just say? I roll my eyes. I said a bunch of things, Ian, but the gist of it was fuck off. Now, if you'll excuse me. What do you mean? Merrill made sure that your project was funded anyway. His grip tightens. I mean exactly what I said. I lean in, eyes locked with his, and for a split second the familiar feeling of being close, here near him crashes over me like a wave. But it washes away just as quickly and all that is left is an odd combination of vengeful sadness. I have my project, which means that I won. But I also. Yeah. I did like him. And while he was always just in the periphery of my life, I think maybe I'd hoped. Well. No matter now. He found an alternative, Ian, I tell him. Me and my inability to carry out the project are going to Norway, and there is nothing you can do about it. He closes his eyes. Then he opens them and mutters something under his breath that sounds a lot like fuck, followed by my name, and other hurried explanations that I don't care to listen to. I free my arm from his fingers, meet his eyes one last time, and walk away swearing to myself that this is it. I will never think of Ian Floyd again. Chapter 7. Svalbard Islands, Norway. Present. He's not wearing NASA gear. By now it's nearly dark, the snow falls steadily, and whenever I look up to the edge of the crevasse, huge snowflakes hurl straight into my eyes. But even then, I can tell Ian is not wearing the gear NASA usually issues to amaze scientists. His hat and coat are the North Face, a dull black dusted with white, interrupted only by the red of his goggles and ski mask. His phone when he takes it out to communicate with me from the edge of the crevasse is not the standard issue Iridium 1, but a model I don't recognize. He stares down for a long moment, as if assessing the shit fuck of a situation I managed to put myself in. Flurries circle around him, but never quite touch. His shoulders rise and fall. 1, 2, several times. Then, finally, he lifts his goggles and brings the phone to his mouth. I'll send down the rope, he says in lieu of a greeting. To say that I'm in a bit of a predicament at the moment, or that I have a few problems on my hands, would be a vast understatement. And yet, staring up from the place where I was positive I'd bite it until about 5 minutes ago, all I can think about is that the last time I talked with this man I told him to fuck off. Repeatedly. And he did deserve it, at least for saying that I wasn't good enough to carry out the project. But at the time he also mentioned that my mission was going to be too dangerous. And now he's shown up to the Arctic Circle, with his deep-set blue eyes and even deeper voice to pull me away from certain death. I always knew I was an asshole, but I'd never quite realized the extent of it. Is this the most massive I told you so in history? I ask, attempting a joke. Ian ignores me. Once you have the rope, I'll build an anchor, he says, tone calm and matter of fact, not a trace of panic. It's like he's teaching a kid how to tie their shoelaces. No urgency here, no doubt that this will go as planned, and we'll both be fine. I'll prepare the lip and haul you up over my shoulder. Make sure everything is clipped to your belay loop. Can you pull on the fixed side? I just stare up at him. I feel. I'm not sure what. Confused. Scared. Hungry. Guilty. Cold. After what's probably way too long, I manage to nod. He smiles a little before throwing down the rope. I watch it uncoil, slither down toward me, and come to rest a couple of inches from where I'm huddled. Then I reach out and close my gloved hand around its end. I'm still confused, scared, hungry, and guilty. But when I glance up at Ian, maybe I feel a little less cold. It's just a sprain, I'm pretty sure. But as far as sprains go, this is a bad one. Ian is true to his promises and manages to get me out of the crevasse in barely a couple of minutes, but the instant I'm on the surface, I try to limp around and it's not looking good. My foot touches the ground and pain spears through my entire body like lightning. I press a hand against my lips, trying to hide my gasp in the fabric of my gloves, struggling to keep upright. I'm pretty sure that the loud swishing of the wind swallows my whimper, but there isn't much I can do to help the tears flooding my eyes. Thankfully, Ian is too busy collecting the rope to notice. I'll just need a second, he says, and I welcome the reprieve. He might have just rescued me from becoming a polar bear's dessert, but for some reason I hate the idea of him seeing me all weepy and weak. Okay, fine, I needed saving and maybe I don't look like much at the moment. But my pain threshold is usually pretty high, and I've never been a whiner. I don't want to give Ian any reason to believe otherwise. Except that those two lonely tears have opened the floodgates. Behind me, Ian loads his climbing gear into his backpack, his movements practiced and economical, and I cannot bring myself to offer any help. I just stand awkwardly trying to spare my throbbing ankle on one foot, like a flamingo. My cheeks are hot and wet in the falling snow, and I look down at my stupid crevasse thinking that until a minute ago, until Ian fucking Floyd, it was going to be the last place I saw. The last slice of sky. And just like that, a rushing terror punches through me. It knocks out the fabricated quiet of my Martian ocean and the sheer magnitude of what nearly happened. Of all the things I love that I would have missed out on if Ian hadn't come for me sweeps through my brain like a rake. Dogs. 3 a.m. In the summer. Sadie and Mara being absolute idiots and me laughing at them. Hiking trips, kiwi iced tea, that Greek restaurant I never got around to trying, Elegant Code, the next season of Stranger Things, really good sex, and Nature publication seeing humans on Mars, the ending of A Song of Ice and Fire. We need to be on our way before the storm gets worse, Ian says. Are you? Ian looks at me, and I don't even try to hide my face. I'm well past that. When he comes closer, a dark frown on his face, I let him hold my eyes, lift my chin with his fingers, inspect my cheeks. His expression shifts from urgent to worried to understanding. I draw in a breath that turns into a gulp. The gulp, to my horror, morphs into a sob. 2, 3, 5. And then I'm just a fucking mess. Blubbering pitifully, like a child, and when a warm, heavy body wraps around me and grips me tightly, I offer no resistance. I'm sorry, I murmur into the nylon of Ian's jacket. I'm sorry. I have no clue what's wrong with me, it's just that I hadn't known. Down in the crevasse, I was able to pretend it wasn't happening. But now that I'm out and I don't feel numb anymore, it's all flooding back, and I cannot stop seeing them, all the things that I almost. Shh. Ian's hands feel impossibly large as they move up and down my back, cupping my head, stroking my snow-damp hair where it spills from under the hat. We are in the icy middle of a storm, but this close to him, I feel almost peaceful. Shh. It's okay. I cling to him. He lets me sob for long moments. We cannot afford pressing me against him with no air between us, until I can feel his heartbeat through the thick layers of our clothes. Then he mumbles fucking Meryl with barely restrained fury, and I think that it would be so easy to blame things on Meryl, but the truth is, it's all my fault. When I lean back to tell him, he cups my face. We really need to go. I'll carry you to the coast. I have a light brace for your ankle, just to avoid messing it up even more. The coast. My boat is less than an hour away. Your boat. Come on. We have to get going before more snow falls. Maybe I can walk. I can at least try. He smiles, and the thought that I could have died without being smiled at like this, by this man, has my lips trembling. I don't mind carrying you. A dimple appears. Do try to contain your love for crevasses, please. I glare at him through the tears. As it turns out, it's exactly what he wants from me. Ian carries me almost all the way. To say that he does it without breaking a sweat, in the whiteout of a thickening snowstorm, in -10°C weather, would probably be a bit of an exaggeration. He smells salty and warm as he deposits me on one of the bunks on the lower deck of the boat, a small expedition ship named MS Joevian. I do spot little droplets of perspiration here and there, and they make his forehead and upper lip shine before he wipes them with the sleeves of his coat. Still, I can't quite get over the relative ease with which he made his way through glaciated plateaus for over an hour, wading through old and fresh snow, sidestepping rocky formations and ice algae, never once complaining about my arms coiled tight around his neck. He almost slipped twice. Both times, I felt the steel of his muscles as they tensed to avoid the fall, his large body solid and reliable as it balanced and reoriented before picking up the pace again. Both times, I felt bizarrely, incomprehensibly safe. I need you to let Amaze know that you're safe, he tells me the second we're on the boat. I look around, noticing for the first time that there are no other passengers on board. And that you don't need responders to come out once the storm lets up. I frown. Wouldn't they know that you already? Right now. Please. He stares pointedly until I compose and send a message to the entire Amaze group, in a way that reminds me that he is very much a leader. Used to people doing as he says. We have a space heater, but it's not going to do a whole lot in this temperature. He takes off his jacket, revealing a black thermal underneath. His hair is messy, and bright, and beautiful. Not nearly as disgustingly hot squished as mine, an inexplicable phenomenon which should be the object of several research studies. Maybe I'll apply for a grant to investigate it. Then Ian will veto me, and we'll be back to mutual hate square one. The winds are more severe than I'd like, but on board is still a safer option than ashore. We're anchored, but the waves might get nasty. There's anti-seasickness meds next to your bunk end. Ian. He falls quiet. Why are you not wearing a NASA survival suit? He doesn't look at me. Instead, he drops on his knees in front of me and begins to work on my brace. His large hands are firm, but delicate on my calf. Are you sure it's not broken? Is it painful? Yes. And yes, but getting better. The heat, or at least the lack of freezing winds, is helping. Ian's grip, comforting and warm around my swollen ankle, doesn't hurt either. This isn't a NASA boat either. Not that I expected it to be. I think I know what's going on here. It's what we had at our disposal. He still doesn't meet my eyes. Instead, he tightens the brace and pulls a thick woolen sock over my foot. I think I feel the ghosts of fingertips trailing briefly across my toe, but maybe it's my impression. It must be. You should drink. And eat. He straightens. I'll get you. Ian, I interrupt softly. He pauses, and we both seem simultaneously taken aback at my tone. It's just pleading. Tired. I'm usually not one for displays of vulnerability, but Ian has come for me, in a small rocking boat, across the fjords. We are alone in the Arctic basin, surrounded by 20,000-year-old glaciers and shrieking winds. There is nothing usual about this. Why are you here? He lifts one eyebrow. What? You miss your crevasse. I can take you back if. No, really, why are you here? On this boat. You're not part of this year's amaze. You shouldn't even be in Norway. Don't they need you at Japel? They'll be fine. Plus, sailing is a passion of mine. He's obviously being evasive, but the cold must have frozen my brain cells, because all I want right now is to find out more about Ian Floyd's passions. True or made up? Is it really? He shrugs, non-committal. We used to sail a lot when I was a kid. My dad and I. He stands and turns away from me, starting to rummage in the little compartments in the hull. He'd bring me along when he had to work. Oh. Was he a fisherman? I hear a fond snort. He smuggled drugs. He what? He smuggled drugs. Weed for the most. No, I heard you the first time, but. Seriously. Yup. I frown. Are you okay? Is that even? Is that a thing, smuggling weed on boats? He's tinkering with something, giving me his back, but he turns just enough for me to catch the curve of his smile. Yeah. Illegal, but a thing. And your father would take you. Sometimes. He turns around, holding a small tray. He always looks big, but hunched in the too-low deck he feels like the Great Barrier Reef. It would drive my mom crazy. I laugh. She didn't like her son being part of the family criminal enterprise. Go figure. His dimple disappears. They'd yell about it for hours. No wonder Mars began sounding so attractive. I cock my head and study his expression. Is that why you grew up not knowing Mara? Who is M.O.? Yeah. For the most part. Mom isn't very fond of the Floyd side of the family. Though I'm sure he's the black sheep by their standards too. I wasn't really allowed to spend time with him, so he shakes his head as if to change the topic. Here. It's not much, but you should eat. I have to force myself to look away from his face, but when I notice the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches he made, my stomach cramps with happiness. I wiggle in the bunk until I'm sitting straighter, take off my jacket, and then immediately attack the food. My relationship with eating is much less complicated than the one with Ian Floyd after all, and I lose myself in the straightforward, soothing act of chewing for a long time, probably. When I swallow the last bite, I remember that I'm not alone and notice him staring at me with an amused expression. Sorry. My cheeks warm. I brush the crumbs from my thermal shirt and lick some jam off the corner of my mouth. I'm a fan of peanut butter. I know. He does. You do. Wasn't your graduation cake just a giant Reese's cup? I bite the inside of my cheek, taken aback. It was the one Mara and Sadie got me after I defended my thesis. They got tired of me licking frosting and peanut butter filling off the Costco sheet cakes they usually bought and just ordered me a giant cup. But I have no recollection of ever telling Ian. I barely think of it, honestly. I remember about it only when I log into my barely used Instagram, because the picture of the three of us digging in is the last thing I ever posted. You should rest while you can, Ian tells me. The storm should ease up by early tomorrow morning, and we'll sail out. I'll need your help in this shit visibility. Okay, I agree. Yeah. But I still don't understand how you can be here alone if. I'll go check that everything is all right. I'll be back in a minute. He disappears before I can ask exactly what he needs to check on. And he's not back in a minute, or even before I lean back in the bunk, decide to rest my eyes for just a couple of minutes and fall asleep, dead to the world. The bark of the wind and the rhythmic rocking of the boat rouse me, but what keeps me awake is the chill. I look around in the blue glow of the emergency lamp and find Ian a few feet away from me sleeping on the other bunk. It's too short and barely wide enough to accommodate him, but he seems to make do. His hands are folded neatly on his stomach, and the covers are kicked to his feet, which tells me that the cabin is probably not as cold as I currently feel. Not that it matters, it's as if the hours spent outside have seeped into my bones to keep on icing me from the inside. I try to huddle under the covers for a few minutes, but the shivering only gets worse. Perhaps strong enough to dislodge some kind of important cerebral pathway, because without really knowing why, I get out of my bunk, wrap the blanket around myself, and limp across the rolling floor in Ian's direction. When I lie down next to him, he blinks, groggy and mildly startled. And yet his first reaction is not to throw me in the sea but to push toward the bulkhead to make room for me. He's a way better person than I'll ever be. Hannah. My teeth are chattering. Again. I can't get warm. He doesn't hesitate. Or maybe he does, but just a fraction of a second. He opens his arms and pulls me to his chest, and I fit inside them so perfectly, it's as though there were a spot ready for me all along. A 5-year-old spot, familiar and cozy. A delicious, warm nook that smells of soap and sleep, freckles and pale, sweaty skin. It makes me want to cry again. Or laugh. I cannot remember the last time I felt this fragile and confused. Ian. His voice is rough, all chest. This is what he sounds like when he wakes up. What he would have sounded like the morning after if I'd agreed to go to dinner with him. How long have you been in Svalbard? He sighs, a warm chuff on the crown of my hair. I must be catching him off guard because this time he answers the question. 6 days. 6 days. That's 1 day before I arrived. Why? Vacation. He nuzzles my head with his chin. Vacation, I repeat. His thermal is soft under my lips. Yeah. He yawns against my scalp, lots of time left over. And you decided to spend it in Norway. Why do you sound incredulous? Norway's a good place. It has fjords and ski resorts and museums. Except that's not where he is. Not at a ski resort, and most definitely not at a museum. Ian. It feels so intimate to say his name so close to him. To press it into his chest as my fingers curve into his shirt. How did you know? Know what? That my project was going to be such a shit show. That I wasn't going to be able to finish my project. I am going to start crying again. Possibly. Likely. Was it that obvious? Am I just this total, giant, incompetent asshole who decided to do whatever the fuck she wanted despite everyone else telling her that she was going to? No, His arms tighten around me, and I realize that I am, in fact, crying. You are not an asshole, Hannah. And you are the opposite of incompetent. But you vetoed me because of the intrinsic danger of a project like yours. For the past few months, I tried to get this project stopped in about 10 different ways. Personal meetings, emails, appeals, I tried it all. And even the people who agreed with me that it was too dangerous would not step in to prevent it. So no, you're not the asshole, Hannah. They are. What? I shift on my elbow to hold his eyes. The blue is pitch black in the night. Why? Because it's a great project. It's absolutely brilliant, and it has the potential to revolutionize future space exploration missions. High risk, high reward. His fingers push a strand behind my ear, then run down my hair. Too high risk. But Meryl said that. Meryl is a fucking idiot. My eyes widen. Ian's tone is exasperated and furious and not at all what I'd expect from his usually calm, aloof self. Well, Dr. Merrill has a doctorate from Oxford, and I believe is a Mensa member, so. He's a moron. I shouldn't laugh, or burrow even closer to Ian, but I cannot help myself. He was at a mace when I was here too. There were 2 serious injuries during my second expedition, and both of them happened because he pushed scientists to finish fieldwork when conditions weren't optimal. Wait, seriously? He nods curtly. Why is he still at NASA? Because his negligence was hard to prove, and because a MACE member signed waivers. Like you did. He takes a deep breath, trying to calm down. Why were you out there alone? I needed to drop off the equipment. The storm wasn't forecasted. But then there was an avalanche nearby. I got scared that my mini rover would get damaged, started running away without looking in. No, why were you alone, Hannah? You were supposed to have someone else with you. That's what the proposal said. Oh. I swallow. Merrill was supposed to come for backup. But he wasn't feeling well. I offered to wait for him, but he said we'd be losing valuable days of data and that I should just go alone, and I squeezed my fingers around the material of Ian's shirt. I went. And then when I called in for help, he told me that the weather was turning in. Fuck, he mutters. His arms tighten around me, nearly painful. Fuck. I wince. I know you're mad at me. And you have every right. I'm not mad at you, he says, sounding mad at me. I'm mad at fucking. I study him skeptical, as he inhales deeply. Exhales. Inhales again. He seems to cycle through a few emotions that I'm not sure I understand, and ends with I'm sorry. I apologize. I usually don't get mad. He nods. I'm usually better at caring less. I finish for him, and he closes his eyes and nods again. Okay. This is starting to make sense. Amace didn't send you, I say. It's not a question. Ian won't admit it to me, but in this bunk, next to him, it's so obvious what happened. He came to Norway to keep me safe. Every step of the way, all he did was to keep me safe. How did you know that I was going to need you? I didn't, Hannah. His chest rises and falls in a deep sigh. Another man would be gloating by now. Ian. I think he just wishes he could have spared me this. I was just afraid that something might happen to you. And I don't trust Merrill. Not with you. He says it you like I am a remarkable and important thing. The most precious data point. His favorite town. The loveliest, starkest Martian landscape. Even though I pushed him away, over and over, he still came in a rocking boat in the middle of the coldest ocean on planet Earth just to get me warm. I try to lift my head and look up at him, but he presses on it gently and keeps stroking my hair. You really should rest. He's right. We both should. So I push a leg between his, and he lets me. Like his body is a thing of mine. I am sorry. About what I said to you back in Houston. Shh. And that I've put you in danger. Shh, it's okay. He kisses my temple. It's wet from the slide of my tears. It's okay. It's not. You could be working with your team, or asleep in your own bed, but you're here because of me, and Hannah, there is nowhere else I'd rather be. I laugh watery. Not even literally anywhere else. I hear him chuckle just before I fall asleep. Chapter 8. Before we can leave for Houston, we spend one night in a hotel in Longyearbyen, Svalbard's main settlement. It offers a bottomless breakfast buffet and keeps the room's temperature about 10 degrees higher than needed for comfortable inside dwelling, truly the stuff of post-crevasse Hannah's dreams. I'm not sure whether Ian shares my bliss, as he disappears as soon as I'm settled in. It's fine, though, because I have stuff to do. Mostly writing a detailed report updating NASA on what happened, which doesn't mention Ian, at his request, but ends in a formal complaint against Merrill. After that, I stumble upon a rare moment of grace. I manage to connect to the mini rover out in the field. I let out a squeal of delight when I realize that it's collecting the precise type of data I needed. I stare at the incoming feed, remember what Ian said on the boat about how valuable my project would be for future missions, and nearly tear up. I don't know. I must be still shaken up. We leave the following day. I've done what I came to Amaze for, surprisingly successfully, and Ian needs to be at Japel in 3 days. The first plane ride is from Svalbard to Oslo, on one of those minuscule aircraft that take off from minuscule airports with their minuscule seats and minuscule complimentary snacks. Ian and I don't get to sit next to each other, nor do we from Oslo to Frankfurt. I pass the time staring out of the window and watching JAG reruns with Norwegian subtitles. By the end of the 3rd episode, I strongly suspect Skyldig means guilty. I guess it means not, then Ian tells me as he wheels my still injured self through the Frankfurt airport. I turn back to look up at him, puzzled. What? I was watching JAG too. It's a good show. Reminds me of my childhood. Really? You used to watch a show about military lawyers with your weird smuggler dad? He gives me a sheepish look, and I burst into laughter. Do Harm and Mac end up together in the end? I ask him. He half smiles. No spoilers. Oh, come on. You'll have to watch to find out. Or I could look it up on Wikipedia. He keeps on smiling, like he thinks that I won't. He's right. We are together for the last leg of the trip. Ian lets me have the window seat without me having to ask, and settles by my side after putting away our bags and wedging a pillow under my brace. He is broad and solid, his legs cramped and too long for the little space he has, and once we're both buckled in, it feels like he's blocking away the rest of the world. A wall, keeping me safe from the noise and the action. I've been restless ever since the boat and haven't managed more than very brief naps, but a few minutes after we take off, I feel myself starting to doze exhausted. The last thing I do before falling asleep is lean my head against Ian's shoulder. The last thing I remember him doing is shifting a little lower to make sure that I'm as comfortable as I can be. I wake up somewhere over the Atlantic and stay exactly where I am for several minutes, my temple against his arm, the clean smell of his clothes and his skin in my nostrils. He's looking at his tablet reading an article on plasma propulsion. I skim a few lines in the methods section before saying, I'm usually not like this. He doesn't seem surprised that I'm awake. Like how? I think about it. Needy. I think some more. Clingy. I know. I can't see his face, but his voice is low and kind. How do you know? I know you. My first instinct is to bristle and push back. Something within me rejects being known because being known means being rejected. Doesn't it? You don't though. Really know me. I mean, we never even fucked. True. He nods, and his jaw brushes against my hair. Would you have let me get to know you if we had fucked? Nah, I yawn and straighten arching to stretch my sore back. Do you ever think about it? About what? 5 years ago. That afternoon. I think about it a lot, he says immediately without hesitating. His expression is undecipherable to me. Utterly unreadable. Is that why you came to rescue me? I tease. Because you were thinking about it. Because you have been secretly pining for years. He meets my eyes squarely. I don't know that there was anything secret about that. He goes back to his tablet still calm, still relaxed. Then after several minutes and a couple of yawns, he closes his eyes and tips his head back against the seat. This time he's the one to fall asleep, and I'm left awake staring at the strong line of his throat, unable to stop my head from spinning in a million different directions. When we step out of the TSA area of the Houston airport, there is a sign in the crowd, similar to the ones limo drivers hold up in movies when they're picking up important clients they're afraid they won't recognize. Hannah Arroyo, it says. And underneath, who almost died and didn't even tell us. Also, she always forgets to replace the toilet paper roll. What a little shit. It's a pretty big sign. All the more because it's held by two not very tall girls, a redhead and a brunette, who are very obviously glaring at me. I turn around to Ian. He slept on and off for the past 4 hours and still looks groggy, his face soft and relaxed. Cute, I think. And immediately after delicious. Handsome. Want. I say none of it and instead ask, what are my idiot friends doing here? He shrugs. I figured you might want to talk through your near-death experience with someone, so I decided to tell Mara what happened. I did not expect her to come in person. Bold of you to assume I didn't tell her myself. His eyebrow lifts. Did you? I was going to. Once I felt less whiny. And whatever. I roll my eyes. Wow, I'm mature. How did you go from not remembering Mara's name to having her number? I had to do unspeakable things. I gasp. Not great, Aunt Delphina. He presses his lips together and nods, slowly, wretchedly. Ian, I am so sore. I cannot finish the sentence because I'm being tackled by two small but surprisingly strong goblins. I wobble on my one functioning ankle, nearly choking when their arms squeeze tight around my neck. Why are you guys here? Because, Mara says against my shoulder. They are both full on crying, so weak, so tender-hearted. God, I love them. Guys. Get it together. I didn't even die. What about frostbite? Sadie murmurs into my armpit. I'd forgotten how fantastically short she is. Not much. How many toes amputated? 3. That's not bad, Mara says with a sniffle. Cheaper petties. I laugh and inhale deeply. They smell wonderful, a mix of mundane and familiar, like airport terminals and their favorite shampoos I used to steal and our cramped Pasadena apartment. Seriously, guys, what are you doing here? Don't you have, work to do? We took 2 days off, and my neighbor is watching Ozzy. You ingrate hag, Sadie tells me before starting to cry harder. I pull her even closer, and pat her on the back. A few feet from us, two tall men are talking quietly to each other. I recognize Liam and Eric from their guest appearances on our late-night FaceTime hangouts, and wave at them with my best "these two, right" expression. They wave back and answer with fond nods that tell me they 500% agree. Oh, Ian. You're Ian, right? Mara detaches from our hug lump. Thank you so much for calling us, this moron would have never told us the extent of what happened. And, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch for the past 15 years. Don't apologize, I tell her. He got your name was Melissa till 20 minutes ago. She frowns. What? For real? Ian blinks from my side, looking slightly abashed. Well, still. She shrugs. I promise I don't have anything against you personally. I'm just not generally a fan of the Floyd family. Neither am I. Mara's eyes lit up. They're horrible people, right? The worst. Thank you. Hey, we should secede. Form our own official branch of the family. That video of you peeing in a Lowe's that they forced me to watch over and over. I'd never mention it again. Ian smiles. Sounds great. Mara smiles back, but then she leans back in to hug me once again and whisper in my ear, I'm not even sure he's really a Floyd. His hair is barely red. I burst into laughter. I think I'm home for real. I want to stay awake and bask in the joy of having Sadie and Mara in my living space again, but I fail and conk out the second we get to my place. I wake up in the middle of the night, Sadie and Mara on either side of me in my queen-size bed, and my heart is so full I'm afraid it'll overflow. Apparently this is what I am now, a unicorn rainbow marshmallow kitten creature. Bah. I wonder groggily where their boyfriends went, promptly fall back asleep, and find out the answer only several hours later, when the sun shines bright into my kitchen and we're sitting at my cluttered table. They were going to stay in a hotel, Mara says. She is having Cheez-Its for breakfast without even bothering to look ashamed. But Ian told them they could bunk with him. He did. My fridge is full, even though I unplugged it before leaving for Norway. There are several new boxes of cereal on top of it, and fresh fruit in a basket that I didn't know I owned. I wonder which one of the dependable adults in my life is responsible for this. Does he have the space? He said he has a big place. I can't believe Sadie's Viking boyfriend gets to see Ian's apartment before I do. Oh well. So she says this seems like the perfect opening to grill you and find out whether you're boinking Mara's relative. But it's obvious that you are. Plus, you just almost popsicled yourself at the North Pole. So we'll go easy on you. That is very considerate. I pluck a grape from the mysterious bowl. I'm not though. Bullshit. No, really. We fooled around 5 years ago when we met up for Helena's interview. Then we had a huge argument 6 months ago when I told him to fuck off after he vetoed my expedition because it was too dangerous, not because he thought I was an idiot like someone told me. Then he came to save my life when I almost died on said expedition. I don't mention our night together on the boat because there's nothing to say, really. Technically nothing happened. As far as told you SOS go, this is an excellent one, Mara says. Right. That's what I got. Hang on, Sadie interjects. Did we know that he was the one who vetoed your proposal? And did we know about the fooling around 5 years ago bit? Did we forget? We did not, Mara says. We would not have forgotten. Thank you for keeping us updated on your life, Hannah. Would you have cared to know? Their hell yes are simultaneous. Right. Of course. Okay, let's see. We kind of made out at Japel. Then he asked me out for dinner. I said that I didn't date, but I'd fuck him anyway. He wasn't interested and we went our separate ways. I shrugged. Now you know. Mara glares at me. Wow. So timely. I blow her a kiss. But things have changed, right? Sadie asks. I mean, last night he carried you upstairs for 7 floors because the elevator was broken. It's obvious that he has a thing for you. Yes, Mara agrees. Are you going to break my blood relative's heart? Don't get me wrong, I'd still side with you. Pose before bros. He's not your bro in any sense of the word, I point out. Hey, he's my cousin or something. Sadie pats her on the shoulder. It's the or something that gets me every time. You can really feel the unbreakable family ties. We seceded last night. We're the founders of the Floyds 2.0. And you, she points at me, could be one of us. Could I? Yes. If you gave Ian a chance. I don't know. I think about how he squeezed my hand while the plane landed. About the way he asked for cookies instead of pretzels because I told him that they're my favorite. About his arm around my shoulders back in Norway while the concierge checked us into our rooms. About him falling asleep next to me, and me realizing how taxing, how physically demanding it must have been to come extract me from the idiotic situation I put myself into, no matter that he didn't so much as roll his eyes at the burden of it. I don't like the word dating. I don't like the idea of it. But with Ian, I don't know. It seems different with him. I guess we'll see. I'm not sure he would want to date, I say, staring at Sadie's Fruit Loops. The ensuing silence drags on so long, I'm forced to look up. She and Mara are staring at me like I just announced that I'm quitting my job to take up McCrane full-time. What? Did she really just use the word date? Mara asks Sadie, pretending I'm not sitting right here. I think so. And without referring to the disgusting fruit. Mara frowns. Dude, dates are amazing. No, they're not. Yes. Try wrapping them in bacon. Okay, Sadie acknowledges, anything is amazing if you wrap it in bacon, but I clear my throat. They turn to me. So, you're gonna go out with him? I shrug. Think about it. The idea is so foreign, my brain catches on it for a moment. But remembering the way Ian smiled at me back in small bar helps me push right through it. I think I'll ask. If he wants to. Considering that he saved your life, contacted great Aunt Delphina and put up 2 dudes he's never seen before so their girlfriends could hang out with you. I think maybe he does. I nod, my eyes fixed into the mid-distance. You know, when I fell, my expedition leader said that no one was coming to rescue me. But he came. Ian came. Even though he wasn't even supposed to be there. Sadie frowns. Are you saying that you feel like you have to date him because of that? Nah, I grin at her. As you know, it's pretty impossible to get me to do something I don't want to. Sadie bats her eyes at me. I always manage. Not true. Yes, I do. For instance, in 10 minutes I'm going to take you to the NASA Dr. Ian wrote down the address for, and we're going to get your foot checked out. I scowl. No way. I am. Sadie, I'm fine. You really think you're going to win this? Fuck yeah. She leans forward over her bowl of cereal with a small smile. It's on, baby. Let the best bitch win. Sadie naturally wins. After the doctor tells me stuff I already knew, high sprain, yada yada, and gives me a better brace I can walk on, I take Sadie and Mara to my favorite coffee shop. Their planes are leaving late tonight, and we squeeze as much as we possibly can out of the day. When we get to Ian's apartment, I expect. I don't know actually. Based on what I know of the guys' personalities, I figured we'd find them brooding in silence, checking their work emails. Occasionally clearing their throats, maybe. But Ian buzzes us into his place, and when we walk into the wide living room, we discover all 3 of them sprawled on the huge sectional, each holding a PlayStation controller, as they yell in the direction of the TV. Further inspection reveals that Liam's and Ian's avatars are shooting at some gelatinous monster while Eric's huddles in the far corner of the screen. He's yelling something that could be Danish. Or Klingon. None of them look like they've bothered to shower or change out of their pajamas. There are 2 empty pizza boxes on the wooden coffee table, beer cans scattered all over the floor, and I'm pretty sure I just stepped on a Cheeto. We stop in our tracks at the entrance, but if the guys notice our arrival, they don't show it. They keep on playing until Liam gets hit by a stray bullet and grunts like a wounded animal. I hate that I love him, Mara mutters under her breath. Sadie sighs. At least yours isn't running against the wall because he can't use the controller. Guys, I tell them, shaking my head, maybe I was wrong in approving of your relationships. Maybe you can do better. Mara snorts. Excuse me. Is that a slice of pepperoni on Ian's shirt? Sure is. Touché. Sadie clears her throat. Hey, guys, it's great that you're having fun, but we should really get going if we want to make our flights. They groan in a chorus. Like 10-year-olds asked to clean their rooms. I just can't believe they actually like each other, Mara says, befuddled. Sadie nods. I don't know how I feel about this. Seems dangerous. I cover my mouth to muffle my laughter. Chapter 9. Ian drives me home after we drop everybody off at the airport following a disturbing phone number exchange among the guys and a few tears from Mara and Sadie. I'm definitely feeling more like myself, because I send them through TSA with a stern stop whining and gentle slaps on their butts. Try not to fall into a glacier for at least 6 months, okay? Sadie yells at me from within the roped area. I flip her off and limp back to Ian's car. I see why you love them so much, he tells me while driving back to my place. I don't love them, that is. I just pretend to avoid hurting their feelings. He smiles like he knows how full of bullshit I am to the very milligram, and we're quiet for the rest of the ride. The oldies radio station plays pop songs that I remember from the early 2000s, and I stare at the yellow glow of the streetlights wondering if I too am an oldie. Then Ian slows down to park at my place, and that relaxed, happy feeling wanes as my heart picks up speed. I told Sadie and Mara that I'd see if he's interested in going out with me, but it's easier said than done. I've propositioned plenty of people, but this. It feels different. I'm not going to be good at it. I'm going to be total, utter shit. And Ian will realize it immediately. You could, I start. Then stop. My knees suddenly look incredibly interesting. Works of art that require my most dedicated inspection. I was thinking that. Don't worry, I'll carry you upstairs, he says. He's wearing jeans and an ocean blue shirt that matches his eyes and contrasts with his hair, and it's scary how attractive I find him. The depth of this crush of mine. I liked him since the very start, but my feelings for him have been growing steadily, then exponentially, and what do I even do with them? It's like being handed an instrument I never learned how to play. Being asked to step on stage at a concert hall utterly unprepared. I take a deep breath. Actually, they fixed the elevator. And this new cast is easy to walk on. So no need. But you can do this, Hannah. Come on. You just survived polar bears thanks to this guy. You can say the words. You could come up anyway. A long silence follows, in which I feel my heart beat in every inch of my body. It draws out till it gets unbearable, and when I cannot help but glance up, I find Ian looking at me with an expression that can be described only as sorry. Like he knows very well that he's going to have to let me down. Shit. Hannah, he says, apologetic. I don't think it's a good idea. Right. I swallow and nod. Push the weight in my chest to the side for an unspecified later. God, that later is going to be bad. Okay. He nods too, relieved at my understanding. My heart breaks a little. But if you need anything at all, you'll be there. Right. I smile and maybe I'm not 100% yet, because I'm starting to feel teary all over again. Thank you, Ian. For everything. Absolutely everything. I still cannot believe you came for me. He cocks his head. Why? I don't know. I could bullshit an answer for him. But it seems unfair. He's earned more from me. I just can't believe that anyone would do that for me. Right. He sighs and bites into his lower lip. Hannah, if that changes. If you ever find yourself able to believe that someone could care about you that much. And if you wanted to actually have dinner with that someone. He lets out a laugh. Well. Please consider me. You know where to find me. Oh. I feel heat creep up my face. Am I blushing? I didn't even know my body was capable of it. I actually wasn't asking you to come up just for. I mean, maybe that too, but mostly, I screw my eyes shut. I expressed myself poorly. I was inviting you up because I would love to have dinner with you, I blurt out. When I find the guts to open my eyes, Ian's expression is stunned. Are you? I think he forgot how to breathe. He clears his throat, coughs once, swallows, coughs again. Are you serious? Yes. I mean, I hurry to add, I still think you won't like it. I'm just really not that kind of person. What kind of person? The kind that people enjoy being with for anything that isn't. Well, sex. Or sex-related. Or directly leading up to sex. Hannah. He gives me a skeptical look. You have two friends who dropped everything to be with you. And I assume sex wasn't involved. It wasn't. And I would drop everything for them, but they're different. They're my people and shit, I really am about to tear up. What the hell, you almost die once and your mental stability gets all fucked up. There are plenty of people who would disagree. Like my family. And you. You'll probably end up not liking me. He smiles. Seems improbable since I already like you. Then you'll stop. I run a hand through my hair, wishing he understood. You'll change your mind. He looks at me like I'm just a bit crazy. In the span of one dinner. Yes. You'll think I'm a waste of your time. Boring. He's starting to just look amused. Like I'm ridiculous. Which? I don't know. Maybe I am. If that happens, I'll just put you to work. Have you debugged some of my code? I laugh a little and look out of the window. There are no cars at this time of night, no one walking their dog or taking a stroll. It's just Ian and me on the street. I love it and hate it. I still think you'd get the most out of this if we fucked, I mutter. I agree. I turn to him surprised. You do. Of course. You think I don't want to fuck you? Kind of. Hannah. He unbuckles his seat belt and angles himself toward me, so that I have no choice but to look him in the eyes. He looks earnest and nearly offended. I have thought about what happened in my office every day for the past 5 years. You offered to go down on me, and I just embarrassed myself, and it should be the most mortifying memory I have, but for some reason it's turned into the axis every fantasy of mine spins around, and he reaches up to pinch the bridge of his nose. I want to fuck you. Obviously. Always have. I just don't want to fuck you once. I want to do it a lot. For a long time. I want you to come to me for sex, but also want you to come to me when you need help with your taxes and moving your furniture. I want fucking to be only one of the million things I do for you, and I want to be. He stops. Seems to collect himself and straightens as if to give me space. To give us space. I'm sorry. I don't want to crowd you. You can. He pulls back a few inches, and all I can do is look at him open-mouthed. Shocked. Speechless. Absolutely. Yeah. Did this really happen? Is it really happening? And the worst part is, I'm almost positive that his words have dislodged something in my brain, because the only thing I can think of saying in response to all he said is that a yes on dinner? He laughs, low and beautiful and a little rueful. And after looking at me like no one else ever has before, what he says is, yes, Hannah. It is a yes on dinner. I could make us a. I scratch my head studying the contents of my open fridge. Okay, so it's full. The problem is, it's full exclusively of stuff that needs to be cooked, chopped, baked, prepared. Stuff that's healthy and doesn't taste particularly good. I am now 93% sure that Mara was the one who went shopping, because no one else would dare to impose broccoli on me. How does one even? I could boil the broccoli, I guess. In a pot. With water. Ian is standing behind me, his chin on top of my head, chest hovering right behind my back. Boil them in a pot with water, he repeats. I would salt them afterward, of course. You want to eat broccoli? He sounds skeptical. Should I be offended? No, Ian. I don't want to eat broccoli. I'm not even hungry, to be honest. But I have committed to this. I am a person who is capable of having dinner with another human. And I will prove it to you. I could make a sandwich, then. There's lunch meat over there. I think those are tortilla wraps. No, they're shit. You're right. I sigh, slam the door shut, and turn around. Ian does not take a step back. I have to lean against the fridge to be able to look up at him. How do you feel about Fruit Loops? The cereal. Yeah. Breakfast for dinner. If I still have milk. Let me check. He does not. Let me check, that is. Instead, he envelops my face with his hands and leans over to me. Our first kiss 5 years ago was all me. Me reaching out. Me initiating. Me guiding him. This one, though. Ian sets everything. The rhythm, the tempo, the way his tongue licks into my mouth, everything. It lasts for a minute, then two, then an uncountable length of time that blurs into a mess of liquid heat and trembling hands and soft, filthy noises. My arms loop around his neck. One of his legs slides between mine. I realize that this is going to end exactly like our afternoon at Japel. Both of us completely out of control and... Stop, I say, barely breathing. He pulls back. Stop. He's not breathing at all. Dinner first. He exhales. Really? Now you want dinner? I promised. Did you? Yes. I'm trying to show you that. Hannah. His forehead touches mine. He laughs against my mouth. Dinner is. It's symbolic. A metaphor. If you tell me that you're willing to see where things go, I believe you, and we can. No, I say stubbornly. The urge to touch him is nearly painful. I can't remember the last time I was this turned on. We're having our symbolic dinner. I'm going to show you that. What are you doing? He is, I believe, turning around to pluck 2 grapes from the same cluster I half ate this morning. He presses one against my lips till I bite into it, pops the other in his mouth. We both chew for a while, eyes locked. Though he finishes before I do, starts kissing me again, and a mess. We're a mess. Done eating your dinner? He asks against my lips. I nod. You still hungry? I shake my head, and he picks me up and carries me to the wrong door. I say when he tries to enter the bathroom, then the closet where I keep the vacuum cleaner I never use and the 1 pair of spare sheets I own, and by the time we're on my bed we're both laughing. Our teeth clack together when we try and fail to keep kissing as we undress each other, and I don't think that anything has ever been like this before, intimate and sweet and so much fun at the same time. Just let me, I finish taking off his shirt and stare at his torso, mesmerized. It's pale and broad, full of freckles and large muscles. I want to bite him, and lick all over. You're so. He has undone my cast. He sets it aside, next to the pajama bottoms that I threw on the floor this morning, then helps me wiggle out of my jeans. Red. And spotty. I laugh a little harder. Yup. That's what I press him down till he's lying on the bed. Then I straddle him and peel off my top, ignoring the slight sting in my ankle. This should be familiar ground to me, bodies against bodies, flesh against flesh. Just seeing what feels good, and then doing more of it. It should be familiar, but I'm not sure it is. Being here with Ian is more like hearing a song I've listened to millions of times, this time with a new arrangement. God, you look so. What works best for you? He asks between breaths. For your ankle. Don't worry, it doesn't really. I stop myself as something occurs to me. You're right. I am injured. His eyes widen. We don't have to. Which means that I should probably be in charge. He nods. But we don't have to. He shuts up the moment my hand reaches the zipper of his jeans. And he stays silent, breathing sharply, staring mesmerized at the way I undo it, slow, methodical, determined. His boxers are tented. He is hard big. I remember touching him for the first time, and thinking how good the sex was going to be. I just didn't think it would take us 5 years to get there. Hannah, he says. I reach inside the slit of his boxers to cup him. The second my fingers close around him, his nostrils flare. Yes. I don't think you understand how He is hot and huge. Closing his eyes, arching his neck before looking at me again with a half-warning, half-pleading expression. He finds me sitting on his knees, his cock spasming in my grip as I lean over. Hannah, he says even deeper than usual. What are you? I start by licking the head, thoroughly, delicately. But he feels smooth and warm against my tongue, and I immediately get impatient. I flip my hair so it's not in the way and seal my lips around him, suck gently once, twice, and then I hear a growl. Then the sound of something ripping. With the corner of my eye, I notice Ian's large hand fisting the sheet. Did he just tear my? Stop, he says, pleads, orders me. My brow furrows. You don't like it. It's not. I tighten my grip around his length, and I can almost hear his teeth grind. His cheeks are bright red. Mars red. We can't. Not the first time. We need to do it in a way that won't make me. I press a soft, lingering kiss at the base. He inhales once, audibly from his nose. So what you're saying is, you don't want to come. It's more shit about keeping my dignity, he rushes out. Dignity is overrated, I say before running my teeth up his length to take the head in my mouth again. This time he seems to just give in. His hand slides through my hair, cups the back of my skull, and for a second he keeps me there. Pulls me closer. Presses me against him until I feel the tip of his cock hitting the back of my throat. I yield to Ian, enjoying the feeling of him losing control, the salty flavor, his trembling thighs, the helpless way he tugs at my hair to get me to take more, deeper, better. Suddenly, it's all upside down. I'm being dragged up, his body flipped on my back, pinned to the bed. One of his hands can hold both my wrists above my head, and when I look up I find him caging me. I first noticed the panic in his eyes, then how close he was to coming, then the sheer relief that he managed to stave it off. Hannah, he says. His tone is laced with command. What? His cock twitches against my abdomen. I think I'll be in charge now. I pout. But I'm sorry, but it's happening. I'm going to fuck you. I'm not going to come in your. He doesn't finish the sentence. Just leans forward to kiss me, and by the time he's done, I'm nodding breathless. Do you have condoms? No. But I'm on the pill. We can do it without anything if you're not giving me gross STDs. But I trust that you wouldn't save me from the walruses just to have me die of chlamydia, so. I think he likes the idea of us doing it without anything. I think he loves the idea because first he kisses me breathless, then he gets to work on taking every last layer off both of us. The truth is, I can't remember the last time I was fully naked with someone. When I'm having sex, the type of sex I usually go for, there always tends to be the odd irremovable layer. A bra, a tank top. Not quite all the way off panties. My partners have been the same, with boxers twisted at their ankles, skirts pulled up, still cuffed open shirts. I've never dwelled too much on the got, but the lack of intimacy behind the encounters is crystal clear now. Now that Ian is draped over me, sucking at my breasts as if they are ripe fruits, his tongue sweet and rough against the pliant underside, alternating between too much and not enough. He spreads my legs open with his knee, positions himself right between them, and I expect him to slide in one smooth move. I'm certainly wet enough, and the way he grips my waist betrays his eagerness. But for long moments he just seems satisfied to nibble on my tits. Even though I can feel his erection, hot and a little wet, rubbing against the inside of my thigh whenever he shifts. It leads to me gasping and him groaning, something deep and rich rising from the pit of his chest. I thought you said you wanted to fuck. I breathe out. I do, he rumbles. But this is good too. You can't. A sharp intake of breath. You can't like my tits this much, Ian. A soft bite, right around the hard point of my nipple. My spine shoots up from the bed. Why? Because no one ever has. I don't want to mention that my breasts are nothing to write home about. He probably already knows, since they have been in his mouth for the better part of the last 10 minutes. He seems to get it, anyway. You have the most perfect little tits. I always got so. Since the first time I met you. Especially the first time I met you. He sucks on one while pinching the other. He is precise. Good. Enthusiastic. Filthy. They're as pretty as the Columbia Hills. A choked laugh bubbles out of me. It's stupidly nice to have someone compare my body to a topographical feature of Mars. Or maybe it's just nice to have someone who knows the Columbia Hills tugging at my nipples and staring at them like they're the 8th and 9th wonders of the universe. This, he murmurs into the skin trailing up to my sternum, this is the Medusae fossae. It even has these pretty little freckles. His teeth close around my right collarbone. It would be hot even if the head of his cock weren't starting to brush against my pussy. It's wetness meeting wetness, a lot of mutual eagerness, a mess waiting to happen. I band my arms around Ian's neck and pull his huge shoulders into myself, like he's the son of my very own star system. Hannah. I didn't think I could want you more, but last year when I saw you at NASA, he is slurring his words. Ian Floyd, always calm, level-headed, articulate. I thought I'd die if I couldn't fuck you. You can fuck me now, I whine, impatient, pulling his hair as he moves lower. You can fuck me however, and wherever you want. I know. I know, you're going to let me do it all. He exhales a ticklish trail along my rib cage. But maybe I want to play with the Herschel crater first. His tongue dips inside my belly button, tasting and probing. But when I begin to squirm and pull him up, he follows meekly, as if aware that I can't take much more. Maybe he can't take much more either. His finger parts my swollen labia to slip around my clit, a slow circle with a little too much pressure. Except that it might be just the right amount. I'm dissolving now, in a pool of coiled muscles and sticky pleasure. Okay. So sex can be this. Good to know. This one, Ian pants against my mouth, no pretense of kissing now. My mouth is slack with pleasure, and he's just stealing air from me, sucking bee stings into my lips and groaning his approval into my cheekbone. This one right here is the Solis Lacus. The eye of Mars. Getting all worked up during dust storms. He has perfect hands. Perfect touch. I will explode and scatter everywhere, a meteorite shower all over the bed. And the Olympus Mons. It's his palm massaging my clit now. His fingers slip into me wherever they find an opening until the tension inside me is so sweet, I'll go insane. I really want to come inside you. Can I? I shut my eyes and moan. It's a yes, and he must be able to tell. Because he grunts just as soon as the head of his cock begins to nudge inside me, a little too large for comfort, but very determined to make space for itself. I order myself to relax. And then when he hits a perfect spot inside me, I order myself not to come immediately. Or maybe it's the Vestitus borealis. He's barely intelligible. Doing those little thrusts that are designed more to open me up than to fuck me properly, and yet we're both this close to orgasm. It's a little scary. The oceans that used to fill it, Hannah. There is no I try to ground myself. To find a place inside of me that is safe from the pleasure. I end up only digging my good heel into his guy, trying to comprehend how such spectacular friction can exist. We don't know that there ever really was an ocean. On Mars. Ian's eyes lose focus. They widen and hold mine unseeing. And then he smiles and begins to move for real, with a little whisper in my ear. I bet there was. The pleasure crashes over me like a tidal wave. I close my eyes, hold on to him as tight as I can, and let the ocean wash over me. Epilogue. Jet Propulsion Lab, Pasadena, California. 9 months later. The control room is silent. Unmoving. A sea of people in dark blue polo shirts and red Japel lanyards who somehow manage to breathe in unison. Until about 5 minutes ago, the handful of journalists invited to document this historical event were clearing their throats, shuffling their equipment, asking the occasional whispered question. But that, too, has stopped. Now we all wait. Silent. Expect only intermittent contact at this time. A dropout as the vehicle switches antennas. I glance at Ian, who sits in the chair next to mine. He hasn't bothered to turn on his monitor. Instead, he's been watching the progress of the rover on mine, his frown deep and worried. This morning, when I straightened the collar of his shirt and told him how good he looked in blue, he didn't reply. Honestly, I don't think he even heard me. He's been very, very preoccupied for the past week. Which I happened to find kind of cute. Heading directly for the target. The rover is about 15 meters off the surface and we're getting some signals from MRO. The UHF looks good. I reach out to brush my fingers against his under the table. It's meant to be just a fleeting, reassuring touch, but his hand closes around mine, and I decide to stay. With Ian, I always decide to stay. Touchdown confirmed. Serendipity has safely landed on the surface of Mars. The room erupts into cheers. Everyone explodes out of their seats, cheering, clapping, laughing, jumping, hugging. And within the delightful, triumphant, radiant chaos of mission control, I turn to Ian, and he turns to me with the widest, most brilliant of smiles. The following day, our kiss is on the front page of the New York Times.